So, John Hlophe is in the news. The Western Cape judge, who should be in prison by now, said the other day that we need to talk about land thieves and whites and colonizers and land was theft and all the rest of it. And yeah, Byron and I had this argument, not an argument, a debate over John Hlophe's speech. So, well, let's just go through quickly what he actually said, and then we can discuss it because we have a very unique perspective on land in South Africa, and it's got nothing to do with colonization and crap like that or race. It's just history, man, just history. But anyway, Byron, let us see. His main points is basically that white colonizers own the majority of the land, and the only way to get the land back from the thieves, inverted commas, is through nationalization. But of course, he was very quick to add that he's not advocating for farmers to be killed because he's a farmer, but we must just, engage with thieves all the time and tell them, you own the land and give it back to us. Not very sage words from someone who purportedly should think better about these things.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very interesting that he told this to the Black Lawyers Association. So one already has to kind of raise eyebrows around why he's giving this narrative to a Black Lawyers Association. He claims it's just historical fact, and what he's finding is that with the younger generation, they're not really interested in talking of this stuff anymore. Obviously, we had the constitutional amendment bill that went before Parliament, and it lost because the EFF didn't vote for it. And John Hlophe is very famous because he is basically the EFF's little clown face. Now, for those of you who don't know, he is the president of the Western Cape judiciary. He is currently facing a suspension. The recommendation has been put before the president of the country, Ramaphosa. And in typical puss fashion, the guy just can't make a decision and has just left this clown to run amok. And so, what do we now have?
Tell us what you really think, Byron.
Well, I am going to, because what we now find is that this clown says, okay, what we still need is we need expropriation without compensation, and we need nationalization of all the land, and then the land can be reallocated through to people based on their needs. And John Hlophe goes around and he says, basically, we should follow the Mozambique example. Now, if you look at the Mozambique example, let's have a look at Mozambique as a whole, this bastion of light, this symbol of hope in Africa. It's Wakanda in action. Oh, wait, it's actually a shithole, and it doesn't work very well there. So he basically wants us to adopt the model of a shithole to make South Africa even more of a shithole. And I suppose the big question that you, dear audience, should have to yourself is if you got pulled there before this clown on a land claim, how the hell could you take anything he says seriously? I mean, would you think to yourself, this is a judge that has my best interests at heart? What do you think, Ramon? Would you be happy with going before this clown?
No, definitely not. But I think it's interesting for a variety of reasons. Number one, it's not about making South Africa better, right? Because he says Mozambique is the example to follow. Mozambique is a literal shithole. There's a civil war in the north due to heroin. GDP is like in the top 10 lowest, poorest country in the world.
Largest malnutrition in Africa.
Right.
They took that title from Ethiopia. Remember that place? Starvin Marvin, Ethiopia? Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. So now it belongs to Mozambique, which he said we should emulate. So it's not about making South Africa better. It's about assuaging feelings of black South Africans, certain of them, and basically pure vengeance on the white race. 100%. That's all it is. This is just the eradication of white South Africans' name, history, culture, and tradition in South Africa. Because it's not meant to be for a better future. It's meant to be destroying something at all costs. And if the country is destroyed with it, to Hlophe, it is worth the cost. So based on that, we don't need to answer in factual terms to him, but we need to answer in general terms. The truth about land in South Africa is that there were conquests by various tribes. The British tribe, the Dutch tribe, Afrikaner tribe, Zulu tribe, Khoisan tribe. And all these tribes fought each other for centuries. And guess who won? The British and then the Afrikaner. That's who won. Every other historical aspect is null and void. All the land was won by conquest, and conquest determines the winner. And those who wins get the spoils of the conquest. It is as simple as that. So for land in South Africa to be like a hot political topic, which it isn't, without the EFF and John Hlophe, no one would give a shit at all about land. These people just need to understand that it is what it is. Changing anything will make it far worse, and they're actually happy to see it go worse in South Africa. That's the first thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that conquest once upon a time was done at the edge of a gun, and it was done in historical times when conquests were a thing. We don't live in those times anymore. In fact, now what we do, and I think all of us, dear viewers, should start calling this out for what it is. This is not justice, it is black supremacy. This is them going, we don't want equal footing. We want to be superior. We want to tell you what to do. Let's not forget that there are Indian landowners in this country. There are colored landowners in this country. There are also blacks and we all know that certain tribes of black aren't really called that black, are they? And if you're a black that follows the liberal values, well, then that makes you a coconut and you're not really black, in the words of Joe Biden. So let's be honest. This is about black supremacy. And they're not interested in your rights and they're not interested in acting fair. If we really wanted to talk about fair, we have to say, are fair opportunities granted to every citizen of the state, which is what our constitution guarantees? Well, the answer is no, it's not, because numerous black individuals get a leg up on numerous other individuals in this country because most people are scared to say no on the basis that they might be called racist. Is there any form of systemic repression going on? Well, no. You could say, okay, well, economic systems have occurred and now it becomes very difficult to buy property in certain places like the Western Cape, which John Hlophe gives as an example. He says it's far too expensive for the average individual to buy property in the Western Cape. Move out the Western Cape then, mate. Like, you're living in a sheltered environment. There are other parts of the country where it's pretty cheap, but that cost of property is no more relevant to me, Ramon, or Mr. Smith, or even Teppel. Teppel's got to pay it too. We all got to pay the same price. Land is expensive in certain properties. That's called supply and demand. I know that's very difficult for a communist to get his head around, but it's the law of supply and demand. So where we see these forms of black supremacy, there is no systematic racism going on. In fact, it is arguable to say that the only systematic racism going on in this country is against the white individual, because there are numerous laws on the statute books that stop a white individual being able to get certain opportunities based on their race.
Indeed. And John Hlophe is actually a good example of this because back in 2005, he called a white attorney a piece of white shit and told him to go back to Holland. This is 2005, mate. This is almost 20 years ago.
100%.
And he was a judge back then, and he's a judge of now. And this is someone who's the president of the Western Cape judiciary, whatever you want to call it. And he is often saying how arrogant the white judges, not the white judges, how arrogant the white legal practitioners are towards black judges. The massive racist chip on his shoulder is quite evident. It has been evident for close to 30 years now. And how he wants to deal with it is to destroy South Africa as long as it destroys the white race. Simple.
100%.
Simple as that.
But you cannot be sitting here going, oh, what judges, what advocates, whoever are arrogant when they call us out for our bullshit. Dear viewer, don't be scared when these people call you arrogant. You know, in my day when I was a kid, my mother always used to say to me, the word arrogance is sometimes very confused for confident. Sometimes a confident individual feels arrogant. And it's amazing how often a person may be confident in the fact that they're correct. And when it comes through to the law, there's a version of correct. But as we've seen from Hlophe many times before, he's not interested in being legally correct. He's interested in being politically correct. Noticeably, RETANC, EFF type politically correct. And with that in mind, I ask you, Ramaphosa, why haven't you suspended the prick? Now, for those of us who may be watching this, and there may be a number of black individuals that are watching this going, oh, he's touched something on your soul. He touched me on my studio because now the white people are upset. We're not upset. We're not upset at all. But none of us should be looking at history and whitewashing it. At the end of the day, land in this country was a result of conquest. You cannot go back to the conquest days and start crying and going, oh, give it all back. Otherwise, the entire world's history, regardless of what country you come from, has to be rewritten. We cannot do that. We have to move forward. At the same time, This is a country where the economy is absolutely shrinking because nobody has faith in the current leadership. And here we have a leader basically standing up saying, oh, well, let's just keep destroying everything. We don't live in a country where we can afford to destroy everything because of some madman's political chip on his shoulder. If the guy wants to be a political stooge, go join the EFF, run for parliament, do things that way. But why do we have a judge sitting in this country who should show us that we have confidence in the judiciary sitting here making these kind of pronouncements? This isn't the role of a judge. And we can all sit here with our black supremacist chips on our shoulder and go, oh, maybe we should allow him to do this. Maybe we should promote it. It's not helpful. And it's not helpful in
No.
the context of the Constitution. South Africa is the land for everybody who lives in it, regardless of race. Isn't that what the Constitution says?
Well,
Isn't that what the Freedom Charter says?
I hate the Constitution, Byron, so maybe it's a terrible example. I agree with Lindy Wisusudu, the Constitution is quite shit, for different reasons than what she thinks, though. But as always with these black supremacists, I would have so much more respect for them if they actually lived according to their values, right? I always go
Which they
back to
don't.
Malcolm X. Malcolm X, to me, was a great guy. He hated whites for a long time. He had guns. He said, if we're not allowed to vote, we'll shoot you. And he was hounded his whole life, right? It's not my politics that he imbued, but it's his politics, and he lived with it, and he died because of it. John Hlophe is getting what, a few million a year, co-owns a wine farm in Paarl, and now just talking shit about land thieves. Like these are just hypocrites who want to destroy South Africa. That's all they are. Same with Julius, same with Zuma, same with Cyril, same with everyone else. They're quite happy to take all the upside of Western civilization, the houses, the money, property rights, etc., but they want to destroy it to make themselves look a little bit better, as long as the white race is eradicated as well. So, clowns.
My concern in this thing, Ramon, is that the article says itself. What John was asking is he said that the youth of today are not really worrying about these things, and that parents should talk to their kids and tell their kids about how their land was stolen. This is not a good thing to be teaching your kids. This does not foster a good country. How do you expect to live in peace with your neighbors when you tell your kids every single day that your neighbors are thieves and villains and horrid? This is not the way to do it. This does not create conciliation between people. And for every individual that sits here going, oh, you mean Hlophe must have touched the white people and made them upset. It's not about that. We all want to live in a harmonious country where we can all just get a job, go to work, and live our lives. So at the end of the day, you yourself shouldn't be promoting this, because
Mm.
this doesn't create a breeding ground for all of us to live in happiness. It does quite the reverse. And you need to understand, when you create a grievance group, just now that grievance group wants to retaliate. And when the people being retaliated against are retaliated against, they will not sit there taking it down. That's how you create a conflict in a state. This leads to civil war. Why is he promoting it?
Because he wants it. Simple as that.
And that's a judge.
And that's, yes, and welcome to the judiciary of 2022 in South Africa, who are not captured.
And before you end this, I need to remind all of our viewers of something. And I'm looking at you, DA, and I'm looking at you, Freedom Front Plus, and I'm looking at you, ACDP, and I'm looking at you, all of you. I wrote to everyone and asked them who wanted to join the show and talk about this topic, and I got silence. None of the political parties are brave enough to stand up for this matter. Yeah, we see you. Like, you guys are complicit in allowing this to occur.
Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers.